Audiobook Academy. Book Summary. The Giver. By Lois Lowry. The Giver, a dystopian story for teens and tweens, was released in 1993. An 11-year-old boy's perspective informs the narrative. Because of his unique talent, Jonas is able to see color when others cannot. Crime, violence, sickness, and powerful emotions have all been eradicated in Jonas's community. They have a firm grip over everything from population increase to environmental change to even the shape of the land itself. The weather is also under their control. All of these enhancements came at the cost of love, passion, music, and color. Only satisfaction can bring true happiness. It's true that there's kindness, but it doesn't come from the heart. We live in an average world. Marriage and childbirth are strictly regulated by the state. Hard labor is imposed on women with little education or social status after they serve 3 years as incubators. Women from the more affluent and well-educated social strata rarely become mothers. They are given 2 offspring, 1 boy and 1 girl, at different ages when they are given a husband. In order to maintain a peaceful sameness, the community must have a receiver of memories. Receiver is now known as Giver after Jonas learns from him. Jonas enters into training with him. Soon, Jonas begins to see the world for what it truly is. All the colors, and all the violence. He and the Giver aim to unleash the memories into the people so that they might be more kind. When Jonas must depart early to save Gabriel's life, the plan breaks apart. An 11-year-old child named the Giver is the subject of a novel set in a unique neighborhood in New York City. Is this terror that I'm feeling, or is it something else entirely? His next thought is that he's wrong. Using the word frightened is an understatement. Last year, the entire neighborhood was terrified as a pilot flew above. The worst thing that can happen to a person is for the man to leave the community or be freed. In Jonas's world, there is a lot of order. Throughout the day, loudspeakers broadcast orders. Due to his culture's emphasis on proper grammar, Jonas concludes that he is more concerned than scared about what will happen in December. After dinner, Jonas and his family continue their regular practice of talking about their emotions. Lily, his younger sister, has admitted that she was annoyed by a student at school. There was a group of 7s that came to visit and broke the rules. They both laughed when Jonas asked whether they were acting like animals because neither of them knew what it meant. Someone uneducated or clumsy, someone who didn't fit in is what they thought it meant. As a result, Lily is able to forgive the youngster and move on from her resentment of him. Then Jonas's father, a nurturer, comes forward to complain about a struggling baby. This, he believes, may be something they'll have to make public. For a while, the family discusses taking care of the child. Because every family is limited to 1 boy and 1 girl, they are unable to adopt it. Couples who are already married can take advantage of the community services as well. When Jonas talks about the impending ceremony of 12, he discloses that he is nervous about what it means to be an adult and what his future holds. Every December, regardless of when the children were born, they are transferred to the following year. When it comes time to move up to 2 years every first year, so be it. Every year, 50 babies are born. The first year of a child's life is spent in the nurturing center. Babies born during the ceremony of 1 receive a name and their birth number as part of the ceremony. A glimpse at the baby's name, his father admits, was an attempt to hasten his development. While older siblings may breach rules to teach younger siblings to ride bikes, Jonas is astonished by his father's disregard for even the most basic of guidelines. Despite the fact that Jonas will be allocated a certain job, his parents advise him not to worry about it. When the 11s are in school and doing their voluntary work, the elders keep an eye on them to see what their talents are and what areas they should focus on. Jonas is also concerned about his pal, Asher, who has recently been hospitalized. When he begins training for his new career, he may lose contact with his current friends and make new ones. In the near future, Lily returns to the chamber. She is searching for a familiar object to soothe her. The community provides a stuffed elephant. Since Jonas had a bear, the kids are aware that these aren't real. Lily points out that Jonas and Gabriel share the same eye color when their father brings the infant home to spend the night. Because it's considered impolite to point out the distinctions between people, this is truly a nasty thing to make. However, the vast majority of people have brown eyes. When she grows up, Lily says she wants to be a birth mother since she enjoys taking care of children. Her mother, on the other hand, dispels this notion by reminding her that birth mothers are only appointed for a limited time period of 3 years. Then they are forced to work in the fields until they are old enough to enter the house of the elders. So why not just let them see their children, too? One time he strayed from protocol and was publicly shamed by the speakers. Jonas thinks back to that incident. While playing catch with a friend, Jonas noticed that the apple he planned to eat had altered slightly. However, even though it appeared to be the same as before, it had changed for a few seconds. Despite the fact that snacks are to be eaten, not hoarded, Jonas took the apple home so he could examine. He felt mortified and apologized to the recreation director the following day before school, when he threw the apple away. Jonas forgot about the apple since he couldn't explain what had happened to it. Students in grades 8 through 11 are obliged to serve as volunteers in a variety of settings in order to explore their interests and strengths. Jonas is summoned to the house of the elders on this day. There is an Asher bike in front of the house. Jonas has been tasked with the task of bathing an elderly woman. It is only acceptable to see naked people among the extremely young and very old demographics. She tells him about a man who was freed while he's taking care of her, which he finds interesting. To celebrate his release, they had a little party where he was toasted and they gave a brief history of his life. The elderly woman has no idea what is beyond the threshold, but she eagerly awaits the day when she will find out. When she hears that children aren't allowed, she assumes it must be amazing. Everyone in Jonas's family talks about their dreams every morning. Jonas rarely has anything to say. It's a different dream though, one from the night before. With his friend, Fiona, he was trying to persuade her to strip down in the bathroom. He explained to his mother that the dream had left him feeling odd. This is called stirrings, according to his mother, and it's very typical for a youngster his age to experience it. A little pill was given to him, and she urged him to take it every morning. Since Jonas' parents and some of his older friends all take the pill on a daily basis, he interprets this as yet another proof that he is maturing. It is now time to begin the formalities. The nurturers hand over the new children to their adoptive homes. Due to Gabriel's inability to be placed, he will remain with Jonas and his family for another year. He is smaller than other newborns and does not sleep through the night. Although Jonas' family was required to sign a contract promising not to form any sort of emotional attachment to Gabriel, the latter remains imprisoned. There is a commotion, or a replacement ceremony, taking place. Caleb, a 4-year-old boy, fell into a river and was presumed dead by his family. They'll get a new Caleb for the occasion. When the new Caleb was handed at the ceremony, the community produced a murmuring sound that went from loud to gentle. The ceremony also commemorates a number of other significant anniversaries. Those in the 7th grade are given a jacket they can button themselves, while those in the 9th grade are given bicycles. The 10s will all receive haircuts. Like Jonas, the 11s' careers will be determined by the elder. 11s are worried, but they know that they can leave and go somewhere else if they don't like the career they've been given or don't fit in. Jonas, on the other hand, is certain that the elders will provide him with the ideal career path. The 11s, including Jonas, line up in numerical order to be assigned their jobs. Asher, a close friend, is promoted to the position of assistant recreation director. The elder had no problem with the other children's choices, but Jonas was left out. Both Jonas and the rest of the room started to worry. They were unfamiliar with the chaos. The elder tells them that Jonas has been assigned the role of receiver of memory after the assignments are completed. It's up to the elderly one, with a long beard and Jonas' eyes, to train a successor for the community, which only has one at a time. When they were looking for a replacement 10 years ago, they chose someone who failed. They began keeping an eye on Jonas as soon as they realized he may be a potential receiver. In addition to intelligence, character, and courage are required of the receiver of memory. The capacity to perceive beyond is the most important quality he must possess, though. By chanting his name, the audience acknowledges him as the new receiver. This elicits mixed emotions in me. A proud Jonas is also nervous since they informed him that preparing for his role will lead him to feel pain, which is something no one else experiences. While his parents treat him with respect when he inquires about what happened to the receiver 10 years ago, they inform him that the girl is not to be spoken. This indicates that she was subjected to the utmost shame. Jonas realizes that the rules of rudeness don't apply to him when he reads over the list of regulations he was handed. He has the power to ask anyone any question he wants, and they must respond. He's forbidden from talking to anyone about his training or his goals. He is not allowed to take medication for an ailment that is not related to training, and he cannot request for release. He's free to embellish the truth as well. Jonas wonders what will happen to his friendships when he has so little free time. Even the thought of not having medication to ease the pain is unnerving for him. However, he is unable to envisage a scenario in which he would be dishonest. In his early years, he was taught how to talk with clarity and fluency. He couldn't employ exaggeration, figures of speech, or any other form of embellishment. Jonas then wondered how many individuals he knew who lied. Trainers are waiting for Jonas in the residence of the receiver. The locked door is the first thing he notices. There are no locks on doors. The next thing he notices is a stunning room with bookcases stacked high with leather-bound volumes. Other than the dictionary and the community volume, there are only 3 books in every other dwelling. They introduce themselves and describe what's to come as the new receiver. He must pass on everything he knows to Jonas, and despite his appearance, he is far from ancient. His goal is to conclude Jonas's training, and he's hoping for the best. Jonas expects to hear stories from an old man, but the receiver assures him that he will receive memories from all around the world, dating back through the ages of previous receivers and beyond. He compares the weight of the memories to snow piling up on a sled and informs Jonas that it is like that. Jonas, on the other hand, has never seen snow due to the climate control, and he has no concept of a slope because the terrain is always level to maximize efficiency. In this way, Jonas's back is touched by the elderly receiver, who transfers a memory of being pulled behind a sled in the snow to his mind. This recollection has been around since before sameness, according to Jonas's receiver. Finally, Jonas feels like he's basking in the sun. What the receiver describes as the agony of a little sunburn is what Jonas describes as the pain of a sunburn. When Jonas asks the old man what he should name him, he responds, "Giver," and Jonas walks away. Fiona's hair begins to change the next day as Jonas and Fiona drive to work. Color red is what he's seeing when he inquires about it with the giver. Because the environment was more colorful then, his memories of the sled always appear red. Color, for example, was sacrificed when the world gained the benefits it now enjoys. It is difficult for Jonas to explain to others what he sees as his training continues, because they don't grasp what he is trying to communicate. Upon learning that Jonas has a wife, the giver reveals to him that he did, but that she has since moved in with the childless adults, as is customary for all parents whose kids have grown up and left home. A receiver's family life is difficult because he can't share his books or memories with them. Many people in the community suffered for years after the other receiver went out of commission 10 years ago. Jonas will be responsible for preserving the elders' memories and providing them with counsel as necessary. For the sake of Jonas, the giver decides to share some of his sorrow with Jonas so that it will be lessening for him. He recalls to Jonas having fractured his leg on the sled ride, and that's what he tells him. Despite limping home, he continues to feel the effects of the injury. After each session with the giver, Jonas is left with a recollection of happiness. After asking the giver for his favorite memory, Jonas learns that the giver's favorite memory is of a family spending time together around a Christmas tree. When Jonas sees a grandmother for the first time, he is awestruck. When a child leaves home, he or she has no contact with their parents in the community. Even after their parents are released, they are not informed. It's been a while since Gabriel has slept through the night. So Jonas offers to take him to his room so he can give it a whirl himself. An inadvertent transference of a positive memory to the baby causes him to fall asleep right away. In order to get the infant to sleep at night, this procedure must be used every night. A woman is due to give birth to twins in a few days, according to his father. In order to save both of them, one of them must be released. As for Jonas, he's curious what will happen to them once they've been set free. When they arrive at elsewhere, will someone be waiting for them? Jonas quits taking his morning pill as a result. His buddies begin to distance themselves from him as he begins to feel more strongly than they do. He wants to know what happened to the other receiver, so he turns to the giver. Like Jonas, Rosemary's name was Rosemary, and he fell in love with her. He made an effort to be gentle with her at first. He got things off to a happy start, which she appreciated. Rather than causing her agony, he instead brought her grief, loss, poverty, and so on. She kissed him on the cheek one day and then applied for release, and he accepted. Release is something the giver considers from time to time, but until Jonas has all of his memories, he is unable to contemplate the subject. Jonas was intrigued by what happened after his father had released one of the twins. Receiver assures him he can participate or watch anything as long as he is a recipient. Records of his father's release were kept. As his father weighs the newborns and administers an injection that kills the heaviest one, Jonas stands by and watches. To administer an injection, Rosemary was instructed to roll up her own sleeve, and the giver says he saw her do it. Jonas had questions after his father had released one of the twins. Receiver assures him he can participate or watch anything as long as he is a recipient. Records of his father's release were kept. As his father weighs the newborns and administers an injection that kills the heaviest one, Jonas stands by and watches. To administer an injection, Rosemary was instructed to roll up her own sleeve, and the giver says he saw her do it. Jonas is disgusted and refuses to return home. Fiona, a friend of his father's, has been implicated in the murders of elderly people at the nursing home where she works. As a reward for spending the night with Jonas, the giver decides that the memory should be made available to everyone. They are no longer capable of feeling anything. Both Jonas and the giver come up with a scheme. Jonathan will be saying his final goodbyes to the community on the night of the ceremonial. It will take time for the memories to return to him, but once he is far enough away, they will. To Jonas' dismay, the giver insists that he stay to assist the people deal with their memories, because he is too frail to leave. Rosemary, the giver's daughter, will be joining him soon, he promises. There is no longer any color in his vision. Colors are the first thing Jonas notices when he asks him what he experienced first. The giver tells him the first thing he experienced was music. He doesn't know what it is since the giver has kept those memories to himself. The giver intends to provide Jonas with memories of courage to aid in the escape, which will take place over the course of 2 weeks. It turns out that Gabriel was taken to the nurture center last night by Jonas' father, and the infant couldn't sleep. They all agreed that he should be free the following day. That'll be 2 weeks too long for Jonas. Since it has a baby seat, he borrows his father's bike and some food. He and Gabriel have gone. Planes are soon tracking them, but Jonas is able to reduce their body temperature and fool the heat sensors on the planes by using memories of cold. He begins to lose his memories as soon as they leave sight of them. However, he has enough of his own warmth to help the baby feel better. Days go by, and then it's over. The path becomes hazardous, and Jonas suffers an ankle injury as a result. The temperature drops as they proceed up the hill. Jonas, however, hears and sees music in a house from his first recollection of the giver as he climbs to the top of the hill in his quest. He also discovers the sled and takes Gabriel along for the ride. Jonas is a character in the novel who is 11 years old boy. Receiver of memory, on his 12th birthday, he takes up the role. He has a high level of intelligence and a keen sense of intuition. He was the ideal candidate for receiver because of his ability to see beyond the obvious. His emotions become much stronger after receiving memories from the giver, despite already feeling more intensely than anybody else in his community. He is the only one who can feel his friends' and family's affection for him, but they don't reciprocate. Gabriel, the tiny baby he saves from certain death, receives the lion's share of his affection. When Jonas decides to go against the grain and leave his community, he does so with a great deal of guts. When he tries to protect his community from too much grief, even though they don't care about him, he demonstrates his strength of character. The giver, he looks much older than he is physically because of all the memories he is forced to endure. Keeping the memories safe for the community was his responsibility, so they wouldn't have to cope with their own feelings. All of the memories that the receiver's family has collected throughout the years are now his. Almost always, the suffering is excruciating. Additionally, he advises the Council of Elders on the community's management by employing all of this knowledge. He comes to notice that by withholding these memories from his subjects, they have turned into cold and calculating individuals. Watching someone who is supposed to care for the children he cares for dispose of an infant in the trash chute after injecting it with a deadly dose of medication, he is horrified. It dawns on the giver and Jonas that the people must have access to their memories in order to experience compassion. Jonas's father, the character is only referred to as father, no other name is given in the book. As a nurturer in the nursery, he is responsible for caring for the newborns until they are presented to their families at the first ceremony. He is a loving and considerate parent. With his children, he spends a lot of time with them and is quite concerned about them. It's clear he cares about them even though he doesn't say so. His community's laws need him to promptly and efficiently kill a baby when the need arises. Even more stunning is the fact that he's shown this kind of cold-blooded behavior throughout the novel. Jonas's mother, this character is also only referred to by her title in Jonas's life. She is mother at all times. Working at the DOJ, she frequently assists Jonas in understanding the rules that govern their community. She is a hard-working mother who is devoted to her family. She spends some time with them, but when Jonas asks if she loves him, she still says no. Even though he is a good student, she tells him she is proud of him. The chief elder, while it would be simple to paint her as the antagonist of the story, She is actually genuinely concerned about the youngsters of the community and has anecdotes about them that she shares throughout the ceremonies. There are regulations that have been in place for decades, and she and her fellow elders adhere to them. That's not to say she doesn't have to enforce them. When Lois Lowry was a little girl, she was raised by the military in Honolulu, Hawaii, where she was born in 1937. While serving in the military, her father, who was a dentist, had to move the family from one base to the next. New York City became their new home after they returned from a trip to Hawaii. Her mother relocated her and her siblings to Carlisle, Pennsylvania, while her father served on a ship during World War II. When her father was stationed in Japan, she attended the Tokyo American School at Meguro, where she was educated by the American teachers and students. Fort J, New York, served as the next base of operation. Lois attended Brooklyn Heights High School until she graduated. She then attended Brown University's Pembroke College for 2 years before marrying a Navy lieutenant and returning to her itinerant life. They resided in California, Connecticut, and finally Florida, where their first child was born. A boy and a daughter were born there after they moved from South Carolina to Massachusetts. After her husband retired from the military, he went to law school in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where they had 4 children. A few years after graduating from law school, my parents and siblings and I made the move to Portland, Maine. The University of Southern Maine is where Lois completed her English degree while raising her children. In college, she took up photography and submitted some of her work to Redbook magazine, where it was published. Her writing career took off after that. Her tale for the magazine was intended for adults, but she wrote it from the perspective of a youngster. At the age of 40, she published A Summer to Die, her second novel. That same year, she also went through a divorce with her husband. The pair came to terms with the fact that they no longer had anything in common as her career took off. Newbery medals were awarded to her books Number the Stars in 1990 and The Giver in 1994. In the years 2000 and 2016 she was a finalist for the Hans Christian Andersen Award, which is the highest accolade a writer of children's books can earn. The Rhode Island Children's Book Award went to her book, Goonie Bird Green, back in 2002. Among the many honors Lois Lowry has received for her work as a young adult author, here are just a few examples. In 2014, Brown University bestowed upon her an honorary doctorate of letters in her honor. Her writings often touch on sensitive subjects like racism, murder, and disease. In The Giver, she also addressed the issue of defying authority. Is it possible for a utopian society to transition into a dystopian one? This book, more than any of her others, has sparked more debate. In some schools, students are forced to read, whereas in others, it is not allowed at all. Lois Lowry, now a grandmother, divides her time between her Massachusetts and Maine residences. She spends her time reading, knitting, gardening, and playing with her 4 grandchildren when she isn't working on her next novel. In spite of her age, Lois Lowry continues to write young adult novels. Teaching children about the interconnectedness of all life and the importance of future generations doing more and caring more for their fellow human beings is a major goal of hers. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button for more content like this. See you in next video.